welcome to another up close video. Today's one is for Tonic Stamp Club number 5 and it is called the Backgrounds and Borders, and you can tell why it's called that from just looking at them, because you have a beautiful A5 stamp set full of lovely generic patterny kind of designs that you can use to create and build up backgrounds, or to just embellish kind of backgrounds, whether it's just with stamping or trying to stamp with different Nuvo mediums like Glacier Paste, Dream Drops, Nuvo Mousse, all that kind of stuff, or like heat embossing as well. And then you also have the corresponding or coordinating A5 die set, which has a couple of dies that coordinate with a few designs on the stamp set, but also has a load of standalone word dies, which I think are really lovely. I love how they are perfectly spaced so that you can use the waste of them. For example, the Miss here, it's perfectly like lovely block letters, perfectly spaced. They've even done it so the metal around the edge is even as well, so you get that debossed imprint of the like the base plate of the metal, which really nicely frames your design as well. So if you want to do any doodly borders around it, you've got that like marked in, so you can just follow that around. Or it's perfect for when you want to trim them out. If you're just using a long bladed pair of scissors, you can actually just trim up to that and get them perfectly rectangular, or you could use your guillotine or paper trimmer. And you've got that guide as a line, which is really nice, or the line as a guide. But you've got multiple different words that are in a beautiful block kind of a font. They're also in a couple of different sizes, 3 different sizes. So this one is roughly an inch. I'll measure them in a minute, but that's kind of like roughly an inch, maybe 1.5 inches, 2 inches. And this one is more like just over 1 centimetre, depending on what kind of sentiment it is. And then you might be thinking some of these don't really make sense on their own. I mean, you've got Miss You, and like you could have love. You can have some kind of other ampersand from somewhere else and do love and hugs, or miss you friend, or thinking of you. You've obviously got options in there that actually make sense, but you also have a few extra words. Oh, you've got the ampersand there, so you can do love and hugs, which is great. But you've got a few extra words that you can use in conjunction with your word dies to complete your sentiments, or to extend them, or to swap out some of the words. You've got love in a word die, but you've also got love in the little word. So if you wanted it as a smaller sentiment on your card, you know, you can switch out the die for the stamp, and you do also have you as well as having you in the word as well. So you've got loads of different options to mix and match, which I'll try and like run through a little bit. So let's first look at the dies that actually coordinate with the stamp set, just so that you can kind of see how they go together. So you've got this circle, which coordinates with some of the actual dies as well, but it can actually cut out this beautiful little kind of almost brush stroke or tiny pen strokes made into a circle design that will cut that out perfectly. You've also got the little hexagon, which I think that will cut either exactly on the stamped line or a little bit within it, so you wouldn't have to worry about getting the white around the edge, but also it could cut out the centre of these pieces as well. If you did some kind of fancy windows in your card, you could stamp this down the front and cut all of the little windows out. But as well as having that die that could do that, you also have this die, which I haven't actually used yet. I didn't really use the hexagons on many of the projects I made, but you even have this die to cut out that beautiful hexagon pattern. I don't know what it is about that, but it's reminding me of Doctor Who and like inside the TARDIS. Or it could be bee themed as well, because it's the hexagons and like honeycomb kind of thing. And you can stamp this multiple times, because if you look at the die there, it obviously lines up like that, but you can shift it down, and then you could have multiples of the stamped or the dyed cut out pattern to like fill a background on a card. And you can then even have this just cut from solid card and stamp those hexagons, and they've made it so they're perfectly spaced so that you can stamp 2 at a time rather than having to just stamp the one. Both of those are actually on the same piece of photopolymer, so you can actually stamp 2 and they'll fit perfectly either within the die or within this other stamp as well. They'll fit absolutely perfectly. And I think that is all of the dies that actually match any of the stamps. So not too many that properly correspond, but there are so many that work really nicely together as well. So this may be a slightly different stamp club this month, although last month we did have only a few that coordinated, and it's quite nice to have that coordination but also other ones that complement each other really nicely. For example, these kind of ones, you've got a stamped design, but the stamped design is different from the die cut design, and again you've got the stamped design of the chevron-y one, but it is different to the die cut design as well. The rectangles on the die cut one are more like actual rectangles, whereas these actually do look like little brush strokes or marker sort of pen marks. They are very similar, but they are definitely different, so they'll work really nicely together to give like different scales on the card as well. So let's have a look at the stamp sets up close first. So we have got that hexagon one that I was just telling you about, so that you can die cut it out. You could die cut the centres out of these, you can stamp it once and then repeat, you shift it offset, repeat stamp it, or you can actually line it up and stamp it really long as well. So if you wanted to do a DL kind of size card, you could just stamp the first one and then line up this portion with that top point of the hexagon and stamp again to get a really long border. You've got these ones, which I really like. They're kind of like a brush stroke, but they are more jaggedy on one edge than the other edge. I'm not sure if you can tell that. I think you kind of can. That they've got like a straight edge to them, and then they've got the little jaggedy edge on it. And I was enjoying using them, either stamping them solidly or by dragging my ink pad across it and then stamping it, so you kind of actually got that brush stroke look, because the ink had only like caught the stamp in a sort of stripy fashion, and I think that looks really nice too. So there'll be some cards later that I'll show you with that kind of use of them on. Then this dotty one is absolutely beautiful. These are going to be perfect for embellishing any kind of backgrounds that you've made, whether maybe you've got into your spray inks, or you really love your Distress ink or Distress Oxide ink blending. Maybe you've got some of the newish big blending brushes from Nuvo and you've been having fun making a load of blended backgrounds, you're not quite sure what to do with them. These kind of stamps are really great for just adding a little bit of texture, and especially if you've used an ink pad to ink blend your background, you can then use the same ink pad to stamp on top of, just to add a little bit of interest and pattern into the background. And I really like that these two patterns, so you've got this chevron-y one as well, that they are both really generic and they don't look feminine, they don't look masculine, so you can use them on any kind of card. You can even turn them into more seasonal kind of designs as well. Like if you stamp this all over, it would kind of look a little bit like snow, or if you stamped this one this way, it could look like a stylized Christmas tree, especially if you cut it off after about like 4 or 5 of them and you drew a trunk in the middle, you could get a Christmas tree out of it. But you can also just use it as I don't know, like pink on pink. It would just look like a beautiful pattern in the background, or with the dots as well. I think the dots look really nice heat embossed too, or you can actually die cut the dots and use your sticky ink pad through a die cut and like heat emboss with them that way, or add patterns and stuff that way, and I will show you that later on as well in a couple of cards. So I've filmed a sped up video, and those 4 cards I will be inserting a clip of past me to show you those cards, but then I've got a few extra samples using a lot of the stamping, I suppose, to show you as well. So hopefully it'll give you some good inspiration of how you might want to use this stamp set if you want to get it. Then you've also got this stamp here that has got the 2 hexagons that are joined together, so that it makes it really, really easy for you to stamp 2 at a time. So it makes the process a lot quicker, especially if you've made a whole background. I mean, imagine having to line up the same one, you know, multiple times, like just the single one multiple times. But if you've got the double, it's going to like cut it down half the time, which is great. I didn't actually use this stamp or these stamps on any of my projects, but maybe I'll show you that if I remember. I'm very good at forgetting, so hopefully I'll remember. I'll try and do a little quick demo just to show you how easy it is to stamp those hexagons inside that hexagon as well. Then you've got all of the little words that I was telling you about. So you've got your face, you, an ampersand, sending, love, hey, and then I. So you can do I love you just as a stamped sentiment, or you can do I love then the big die cut you, or I love and the little stamped you, or I mean, I might get a little bit lost, but you could have love you with the tiny little eye on there as well if you wanted. You can do this one. I was actually I snipped the actual stamp in half so that I could use the your, and I did did I do I, or maybe I just did miss. Yeah, I think I did miss. So miss your hugs. You could even do thinking of your hugs as well. You can do like love you friend, miss you friend, or miss you friend, or hey you, hey friend. Loads of different combinations. You can do love and hugs, sending love and hugs. Loads of different combinations that you can mix and match with using the stamps and the dies in conjunction with each other, which is really nice. Then you have also got this little triangular one, which I didn't use actually. I didn't get a chance to use that one, but I reckon you could make some really cool backgrounds with this, because if you flipped it 180 and stamped it again, you'd kind of get like a diamond, or you could turn it on the side and would it be square? I'm not quite sure if the angles are right to make that square, but you could have like a sort of diamondy sort of pattern. You could stamp this one way, flip it up the other way, then flip it up again, and you'd get more of like a border design with the kind of up and down of the triangular pattern going through it. You've got this beautiful circular one, which kind of looks like tiny little brush strokes or pen strokes in a circular design, and that circle die does actually cut that out as well if you want to. You've got this one. I really love this one. I don't know what it is about chevrons. I do really like them. I suppose it kind of like draws your eye across a card or a project, or think about this on like a scrapbook page or something. You could repeat stamp it and have it as a complete border across the bottom. You could like mask off parts of it so it just ends in a point, so it's like pointing towards something that you want them to see, using it in your art journaling as well. And you can really easily cut this out if you wanted to. You don't get a coordinating die for it, but it's very simple to cut out, and then you could even snip off any of the little triangles at any places to make those kind of like pointer sort of elements. Or even you know, using it the other way, if you struggle with cutting those fishtail banners that you want your sentiment to sit on, you could stamp this in a really pale colour of ink, and then you could snip off the little fishtail at the bottom. Then you'd have a pattern on your little panel, and then you could stamp in black, or use the die cut letters and stick them on top of this, and then you'd have the perfect fishtail banner as well. And then the final one is this lovely little border. I know these kind of borders are like really easy to draw yourself, but sometimes you just want it to be quick and simple. And because this is because all Tonic stamps are really good quality photopolymer, and this is quite a skinny design, you can actually like manipulate it onto your block. So if you, for example, combined it with Stamp Club number 2, which was like the little hippos and the tortoise and stuff, you could make like a little hill scene. So you could bend this into whatever position you want to create some kind of like funky landscape that's got that kind of pattern going across the top of it. So these kind of ones are really simple for that kind of thing. And you can even do that with the skinny ones as well. These little skinny brushstroke ones. I mean, for example, this one is really tiny, but you really can like manipulate this onto your acrylic block and create all sorts of different patterns as well. So really do think about playing with these kind of designs to build up. And actually, I didn't try this, but that would be perfect for making a tartan or a plaid as well. I didn't even think of that. Yeah, that would be really good for that, because you've got all the different widths of the strips, and it would, I suppose it would kind of look more like worn fabric because it's got the little jaggedy edge to it as well. So I think that would look really lovely done with this too. So hopefully that's given you a few ideas of how you might want to use these kind of stamps. I think they're just going to be brilliant for art journaling, or for any time where you just want something extra in the background. Like a lot of the time when I leave white space on a card, sometimes I want something to fill that, but I don't want it to be like overpowering. I don't want it to detract from having that white space on a card. So then just taking a basic patterned stamp like one of these or this one and stamping it in a really light grey ink in the background, or stamping it and heat embossing it with clear, or with a sparkly clear embossing powder, just so there's something there when the person like tilts it in the light. I think these kind of stamps would be brilliant for that. Then showing you the dies, we've got these ones here. I love these. I was cutting these out. I think I've chucked both pieces now because I got them really inky and messy. But I was cutting them out of a piece of card. So basically, take a piece of card that's maybe this kind of size and then cut this out of the middle, and you've instantly got your own stencil. So if, for example, you love the look of stamping with your embellishment mousse or your Nuvo Dream Drops or something like that, but you don't want to make your stamps dirty, you know, because I always worry about if something's going to damage your stamp. I don't think it would. I haven't had that problem, but sometimes you do worry. So you've actually got like coordinating dies, so you can get the same kind of effect but without actually putting those products onto your stamps, which I think is really nice. So then you can die cut these, make your own stencils, then you can either just put normal ink through them, you could do glimmer paste through these as well, works really nicely. You can get a little sponge and do like dream drops through them. I've done that on one of my projects that I'll show you. You could use glacier paste, you could put Nuvo mousse through them. I've done that on another project as well, and really utilise these beautiful simple patterns, like what I was just saying about adding a little bit of something to the white space on a card just to like fill it in a little bit but not taking away the white space. Using one of these as a stencil just with like the white glacier paste or the white Nuvo mousse, or even the white crackle mousse, because then you'd have like texture of crackles within these little designs as well. So I do really think these are brilliant for that kind of thing. But obviously you can just use the die cut as well, so you can actually cut the piece out, use the decorative design of having the fall away from, you know, the fall away cut out of your card. So it's like you could have it as a little strip, you could cut multiples together, you could cut this together and then flip it and then flip it again, you know, and keep cutting it so you've got like arrows going one way, the other way, and then the other way to build up a whole background on a card. You could mix and match the chevron with the dots all the way up a card. With the dot one, especially if you're using like a specialty card like a gold mirror card, the fall away pieces are brilliant for adding as like little scatterings across your card, as an alternative to confetti or sequins. You've like instantly got them there, and they'll match whatever card you've used to cut this out of, where, you know, if you've used this piece elsewhere on the card, you'll then perfectly got that match of the same gold colour, because sometimes it's difficult to match like gold confetti or sequins with a gold card that you've used, but you'd have the perfect match there. With these ones as well, you've got those little fall away pieces. You could have a go at putting two together to make little crosses, to have as little decorations scattered across your card, maybe even combine the little dashes and try and make some crosses and dots and stuff as a fall away piece, or even just use them as shaker bits as well. I think they make really lovely shaker bits, and if you cut them from Tonic's pearlescent card, it's double-sided, so it wouldn't matter so much if you had them the wrong way round in a shaker card as well. Then you've got this one here, that is that little circle that cuts out the circle stamp, but you've also got this beautiful just a cutting die, but it cuts that pattern into the circle for you, and then you have an alternative one which is slightly smaller that you could also cut inside of that, or you can just cut these and the four that you get down here, you can just cut them straight into your card, even just white on white, and maybe even ink blend then over the top. The patterns would pop out because the ink blending wouldn't get into all the details that's been pushed into the card. So you can do all sorts of different techniques with these kind of dies as well, just to add a little bit of pattern, or again that subtle kind of element in the white space of a card. If you've thought about it before you've put your card together, you could then use these kind of dies to add that little bit of pattern. Then you've got this hexagon strip one that cuts out the stamp that I showed you earlier, and you've also got the little hexagon that goes with it as well, that you could use. I mean, you could just use this die by itself and cut the centre out, and then you have like a little frame piece. that would look really lovely. Maybe if you were making something three-dimensional, for like example like a candle, you could cut this. It hasn't got an end to it, so you can continuously cut this. And you could make like a band that wraps around a candle to decorate it, or you could make a band that wraps around a memory book to hold it shut, or to go around a gatefold card to hold it shut as well. So lots of different ways that you could use that kind of die. And then finally, because I've been talking for like 20 minutes, finally we've got the actual word dies as well. So you have miss, love, friend and hugs that are all practically the same height kind of font. Then you have you in the massive one, and then you have thinking of in a smaller font, because it's a longer word and it wouldn't fit nicely on the kind of regular sort of size cards that we like to make. So the miss, love and I think friend is slightly bigger. So the miss, the love and the friend are all, 1 inch tall, which is a really decent size. Then hugs is actually 1¼ inches tall. Thinking of you is 3/4 of an inch tall. And then the you is not quite 2 inches. 1 15/16 or 7/8, maybe it's 7/8. Maybe 1 7/8 inches tall. So really decent sized letters. And if you're just using them like this and you have all these fall away letters, you can then obviously just use the same word on a different card, just using the fall away pieces. But you could also collect all of them up and do a wacky alphabet background. You know, you can get embossing folders that just have like random letters all over them, all higgledy-piggledy upside down and stuff. You could recreate that kind of a look if you've cut them all from the same colour of card and then you stick them all onto the same colour of card that they're cut from. It gives that faux embossing folder kind of a look, and having the different sizes of letters would look really nice with that as well. You can also make your own words out of this too. For example, if you wanted to do a wedding card, you have actually got the letters, miss and then turning into Mrs. You actually have the M, the R and the S in the same size, and the M and the R for Mr. So you could do a wedding card if you wanted to. You can also do Christmas. You can do Noel. You've got the letters for Noel as well. What other things have you got? Obviously, if you mixed and matched the heights of letters, you could combine to make even more words actually as well. Even do like a small little word just like hi, because you've got the H from the hugs and the I from the miss. And even though the H is slightly bigger, it could be slightly bigger because it's the first letter of the word as well. So you can actually create loads of different words out of all of these letters, which is really lovely. So I will, now I've shown you everything and been rambling for ages, I will pass you back to Past Me, who will show you 4 different cards that are in a sped up video that will be up tomorrow as well. So I'll be back in a little bit. Okay, so these are all the samples that are in my sped up video. I show you how to make all 4 of these. 2 are kind of like, this was a bonus card from this one. So it was originally just going to be a 3 card sped up video, but I thought, I've got the pieces out of this one, I might as well just stick them onto a card and make a really quick, simple card straight away, rather than leaving them there and then I forget about them. So, I tried to also, as well as kind of showing you a few different layouts for using these dies and stamps, I thought I would also try and show you a few different kind of backgroundy techniques as well. So this one that says thinking of you is actually using Aqua flows to create the background. And I was using tomato juice, grenadine red and flamingo pink. I think these 2 come in a set together and then this one's in a different set, but I'll make sure they're all linked below. And I just used them randomly to create the background on this one. And then I was using the die cuts. I think I might have chopped them because they got mucky, but I was using the die cuts from the die set, just cutting them into scrap card. Obviously I was using the patterns, not the words, but whenever you've cut the patterns of all the words, you obviously also get the waist piece, or you know, this could be the piece that you're after. For example, on this card it was the piece that I was after, and I have all of the letters spare, so I could do another card just with the letters on as well. But I was using these pieces as stencils and then using embellishment mousse through them, because you do get similar stamps that could work for this kind of look, but you can't easily stamp with embellishment mousse. You can stamp with it, it just doesn't give as much of a reflective quality as if you've used it through a stencil, and also you've then got to wash your stamp afterwards. So if you cut the die, you can then just use a piece of foam to apply your Nuvo embellishment mousse through your kind of like homemade stencil, and then you can get these gorgeous patterned elements with that gorgeous shimmer on them behind. And then I also came back in with the dotty one, and I at first used it with some Distress Oxide inks just to add some extra interest in the background, picking out a similar colour to the Aqua flows that I'd used in the background. And then I also used that same stencil piece of like the dots to well, as a stencil to scrape through some glitter accents, and this was the Harvest Moon colour of glitter accents. I thought it would go nicely with this colour scheme, and originally I was going to leave it just the stencil dots, but it was a little bit blobby because my piece of card had warped from where I'd used it multiple times to do some stenciling with just ink and stuff. So instead I actually cut the same die cut again from some gold card and then placed it back over the top, which I think looks really nice. I do that quite a lot with sort of glimmer paste kind of techniques. You can use it as a stencil and then you can die cut a fresh one and put it over the top, so you have just the glimmer paste in all of the areas that were die cut away. So I think that looks nice. And then some of the leftover pieces from this die cut I then used as like little scattering elements. I often do this with sequins, and I have on one of the other cards, but you get all of these beautiful little random shaped dotty elements, so you can then just scatter them across the card, which I think looks really lovely. Then for the Thinking of You, I have just cut that Thinking Of. I didn't put the centre of the O back in, mostly just because I lost it, but you can put the centre back in as well. That obviously cuts out. But I think it's still legible without it. Some letters you do want to put it back in, but an O, it's, you know, obviously you know that's an O just from looking at it. You don't really need the centre of it in there. And I've just used a spare bit of background with, again, some more Distress Oxide inking on it to mount behind that. And then in the stamp set you get, I'm sure I've already told you at the beginning of the video, but you also get lots of little words that can coordinate with some of the dies as well. So I just used the U and I gold heat embossed that as well. So that is one of them. That was showing you kind of more an aqua flow sort of a background, and then using the dies to stencil with, and then adding a bit of I did add a little bit of stamping on here, just that little one down the side, which I could have watercoloured in with some of the mousses as well if I wanted a bit of extra sparkle on there. Then I also did this card because I wanted to show just more of like actually using the stamps as stamps and building up a design on there, rather than using any of the dies in conjunction really. So I used this little circle stamp that's got all these kind of uneven tiny little brush strokes, I guess, or like they could be little pen marks as well from like a felt tip pen or something. But I really like this design, and it doesn't have an edge around it, but I just watered down some of the Nuvo embellishment mousse, then used one of my tiny detailed Arteza brushes and just painted on a kind of messy swirl around the edge of them, just to give it a slightly different look and to tie these die cut elements into it, because they are complete circles. So I thought having an outline around them would look really nice. And you can see in the video how I kind of layered up the designs. I started with I was using Tonic ink pads actually, I'll tell you the names before I forget. I was using Carrot Stick, Sliced Strawberry, and also Panama Rose as well, because I wanted all the cards to match together nicely. So I started with the orange, the Carrot Stick, and did the circles. Then I added in some of the circles with the Panama Rose, and then I wanted to bring all of the circles together, so I took the large dotty stamp that's in the stamp set and stamped that with the Sliced Strawberry all the way down to kind of connect all of the circles that I'd already done. And then I took one of the kind of they're almost brush strokes sort of strips or stripes on the stamp set, And instead of inking it up solidly like I had with all of the other elements, I actually just dragged the carrot stick ink pad across it, and you get a kind of streaky effect as if you were using a dry brush, but you haven't had to be accurate and, you know, try and actually use a dry brush to get a straight line. So I think that's a really cool way of doing that. You could have, I could have done that with the dots as well to give a similar effect, and also the chevrony design, or also the hexagons, because they're a nice sort of solid stamp. They've got a little bit of solid area. You'll be able to see that if you've dragged an ink pad across it to give a sketchy, painterly kind of a look. You'll be able to see that. Then, again, going with the circular element, I wanted to use some of these beautiful circles from the die set. I wasn't sure I'd like these, but I do. They are really nice. I love the way it's just like the little stitch lines that cut into the card, and there's multiple options for this as well. You only get the outside to cut this large one out, but you get multiple other circular patterns that you could use as well. So if you had a small circle punch that would fit this perfectly, or another circle die as well. I didn't want to bring in too many, well, I don't think I brought in any other dies. I didn't want it to confuse you, you know, to make you think that you got the circle die when you don't. But you get the one that goes with the larger one that I've used here. But with the smaller ones, I suppose they've kind of made it so that it fits inside this hexagon strip. And you also get a hexagon that does this too. So if you had used some of the hexagon stamps in the background to create something similar, you could have then die cut these ones to go on top of it as well. But I really love how they look. And I've just used the gold satin CRaFTi specialty or luxury embossed card, because it just has a really subtle stripy design to it, and I thought it would go really nicely. Then I've also cut the miss and the hugs out of that same card as well, and then instead of doing like miss you or sending hugs, I thought I would use part of one of the stamps from the set and do miss your hugs, because I mean at the moment there are certain people who you really miss their hugs. So I thought that was quite a nice sentiment to go on a card. And then I've just finished it off with a few drops from using the glitter accents like I did on the previous card as well. And I actually did them on top of some of the dots in that stamped design too. And then there's also some splatter on there as well, because I love adding splatter. And especially when you've just got some excess mousse on your glass cutting mat, adding a little bit of splatter in the background, it kind of brings all the layers together, because it kind of, you know, goes across everything and unifies it all really. So I really like doing that. And then these two are, this was the one I was making, and then this was the bonus card, because I wanted to show how perfect these word dies are for creating shakers with. So this was going all out and using 3 words, but obviously you can just use 1 word. I'm not sure if you get the word thank. No, you don't. But if you had alphabet stamps or another word that says thank from your stash, you could easily put thank and just have the shaker being you, or you could even have friend underneath and it say thank you friend. But yeah, there's loads of different combinations that I'm sure I will have told you at the beginning of the video, of different ways you can mix and match these sentiments, whether it's with stamps from your stash, a Dymo labeler, separate letter dies or stamps, or any of the like strip sentiments or header sentiments that Tonic do as well. You can really mix and match these, and I love the boldness of them. I think they're really lovely. I don't think I have many, or if any, dies like this where all of the letters are laid out and they cut straight into the card, and they're nice like block ones that are in a block kind of a shape. But I really like this kind of style. And it just makes such a quick and easy card. So all I did for this one was I used some distressed oxides in the background with the new blending brushes. And if you're curious, I've got 7 now, so I have gone for like 1 for every colour, and then on the bottom of them I've just put what name they're going for. So this one is actually orange and red, because I don't tend to use red that often, so I thought orange and red, you know, they're very close to each other, but pink I'm definitely keeping pink, blue is definitely blue, yellow is definitely yellow, and green is green, but then other ones can kind of mix around a little bit with what kind of colour they are. But that's how I've labelled them, because I just quite like them sitting either this way or this way out on my shelf, and then I just know what colour they are from the bottom then. So I thought I'd let you know that. And the Distress Oxide colours I was using were Spiced Marmalade, Festive Berries and Picked Raspberry, and I'll link all of those below as well. And so for this one I was just ink blending the background with those gorgeous large brushes, and you can see how beautiful of a blend you get with them. And they also work perfectly to blend through your faux stencils that you've used the dies for as well. So I've done like this sort of chevron-y design and the dots as well. Oh, actually no, the chevron designs are in oxides, the dots I did in the mousse again. So we've got a little bit of shine from the mousse on there, and you can see there's also mousse splatter in the background as well. I did a little bit of stamping, just a couple of the stamps, again using some of the oxide, so I used Picked Raspberry and Spiced Marmalade to stamp those two, just to give a kind of directionality to the card. And then all I did was tape the 3 dies together and place them on the background and die cut them. And then, as I said earlier, I'd already cut them, so why waste them or leave them on my desk to get lost, you know? So I then just put the letters in the exact same place so the pattern continues across them, which I really love doing that, because it's kind of like, how on earth did you get that to match up perfectly, you know? But really easy to do, and you've got like the bits of mousse on some of them as well. So I really love how that looks, and the fact that you get 2 cards for the price of 1. And don't think you have to stick these exactly in the same configuration. I did do it this way to show in the video how you can perfectly match them up. I put this piece back over the top and then stuck them through it, and I raised them up on foam tape as well. That is a little bit fiddly, but it is possible to do it. But you don't have to just rearrange them like this. You could have done it as a landscape card and maybe put Miss this way, then you this way, and then Friend down here. You know, don't think you have to just use them exactly as they were on the first card that you made. I just thought it would be quite nice to show you that one. But yeah, so I really like how these cards turned out, and there'll be that sped up video so you'll be able to see exactly how I made them as well. Hope you like these cards, and I'll pass you back to future me to show you some more of the samples that I've created as well. Okay, so I've got a few more examples to show you, 2 more cards and a little quick journal page as well. So I did this one, which is using those 2 kind of more outline stamps just to create some like direction diagonally across the card. I've done one of them pointing that way, one pointing that way, and then 2 of the little strips in there. I've just coloured them in with some of the Nuvo alcohol pens. And then I've taken the die cut, so the circle die cut, and then, you know, the piece that has the holes missing, I've then placed that over the top in 2 random places and used my clear sticky ink pad and pressed through the holes, and then used gold embossing powder on the areas just to give a lovely little design. You could also do this with the stamp as well. You can stamp and then heat emboss, but I just wanted to show you that you can heat emboss through the die cuts as well if you want to. Then for the sentiment, I've actually used the letters from this waste piece, so I cut them from white, and then I just stuck them onto a scrap piece of paper, pressed my sticky ink pad all over it, and then heat embossed them in gold, and then did the corresponding little U, so it just says Miss You as the sentiment on this card. And then I thought, well, we have the other stamps that are patterns, and I thought, wouldn't it be nice to actually colour these designs in with stamps? So instead of actually colouring, if you're not into colouring, you can colour them with the stamps as well. It obviously gives a completely different look, but the way I was doing this is I used the chevron stamp twice. I was using, to match the kind of colours of the Nuvo pens, I was using Lime Burst and Laguna Bay for the green and the blue on here, and I just stamped it once, then shifted it a little bit, and then stamped it again. I just made sure that the majority of the little dashes were going to kind of go in between the colour. Some of them do overlap because it's a completely random design, but I think it looks really nice actually, even leaving a little bit of that white card. And then I wanted to add, I don't know, some kind of like darker colour into it as well, so I just used one of the Supreme Metallic Nuvo pens. This is the Rusted Bronze colour. I don't know if that's focusing. It comes in a set of 3 and you get a gold, a silver and a bronze, and I just used that to colour in a few of the little chevrons on there, and I repeated that top and bottom. Then for the middle section I used the dots to colour it in, so I was using the Acorn Brown and the Peach Bloom ink pads, and I just stamped the dots once. I think I flipped it round the other way and then stamped again with the other colour, and again I coloured some of the chevrons with that bronze pen as well. Then for these smaller designs here, the largest of the like brushstroke kind of stamps fits that perfectly. So that is actually stamped instead of coloured, and I was kind of running my ink pad along it so that it wasn't 100% solid, because I wanted it to have a little bit of the white still showing through there. And then to give that like extra depth or extra colour, I then used the smallest of the little paint stroke ones and did that in brown on top, and you can see again I was just swiping the ink pad across it, so it's not a completely solid design. Then in between these sections I was just using the medium, or up here I did use the skinny one because the gap was a bit too small, and stamping them in the Lime Burst and the Laguna Bay just to fill in some of the areas and bring the green and the blue further into the card. And then I also just used that bronze pen and did a few dots along some of those designs as well. So I just think that looks, well, it shows the versatility of these, the fact that you can just use the outline stamps and colour them, but if you don't like your colouring or you just fancy using your ink pads and doing some more stamping, you can actually do quite a cool design of stamping colouring them in. And obviously you don't have to do it diagonally on a card, I just do like diagonals, but you could easily have stamped this straight on a card as well, and I think on a square card this kind of design would look really nice too, but you can easily go for a straight kind of design, because these stamps, I didn't actually tell you, the length of these designs is actually 5.5 inches. So you can do a 5.5 inch square or a 5-inch square card, you know, and still get the design going all the way across it, which is really nice. Then for the U, I had been doing some other die cutting, so I just ran the U die through a few times as I was cutting other stuff, just to, you know, use up the space on the plate. And so I die cut 4 of them. I stacked 3 white ones together, and then the bottom one I coloured with the dark bronze marker, and then I offset them so you've got a little bit of a shadow, so the U kind of stands out. Then for the rest of the sentiment, these dies or these stamps aren't actually in the stamp set, so you can actually combine them with your other stamps that you've got from previous stamp clubs, or just from your stash if you haven't bought any of the previous stamp clubs. But I was using the, I think they were both from here, yeah, the Thank, this was stamp club number 1, the Heartfelt Corsage. I used the Thank off of here, and then the So Much as well, so it then says thank you so much as a sentiment on that card. And then the final sample I've got to show you is this little journal page that I'd done. So it's just a really simple journal page, was just leftover paint. I think it might have been the same paint that I had used on the page with the last month's stamp club as well, I can't remember, but I've just mixed and matched a couple of different stamp clubs again. So I've used the Miss. I was cutting the Miss out for a different card, I think it's one of the other ones that Past Me showed you earlier, and I'd cut it out of the gold, and then I just put the white behind, and I also just used the Aqua shimmer on there as well to give it a little bit of sparkle. I have brought back the beautiful little tortoise from the second stamp club, which is this one, the Party Animals number 2, and the tortoise is hiding behind there. Then I also brought in some of the sentiments from this one too, and I decided to make it say, I totally miss your hugs, because at the moment everybody misses everybody else's hugs, so I thought that was quite a good little page to do. Then in the background I was actually stamping with oxides onto the acrylic paint. It did something weird up here. I don't know why that happened. I don't think I've ever stamped with oxides onto acrylic paint before, but it does some weird kind of thing. But anyway, I was just using the spotty stamp to do some of those. So there's like one there, and one along the top, I think. Yeah, one that way along the top. Then I had the chevron cut into a piece of card that I'd been using on a different card, and so I got a little piece of sponge and some of the Dragon Scale Dream Drops, and I just patted it through. Just, it gives a really subtle background, so from here it's kind of hard to see it, but when you get it in the light, It just gives that beautiful design, and I did a bit of splattering in the background too. And then I have finished it off to make this kind of like scattering across the card using some of those little hexagons with the dotty design in the centre of them. And then I've done a little bit of doodling on there as well. But I love that tortoise. He's so sweet. He goes perfectly on a journal page, and I've used dream drops on his shell as well. And yeah, I just thought I'd show you just a quick little journal page. This is how I think the stamps are going to be really useful, and the dies, and using them as a stencil. I think just to build up like subtle backgrounds, because it's not too much, it's not overpowering from the background, but it just adds something extra that wasn't there before, rather than it just being like solid colours of paint. I know this is kind of an ombre, but instead of it just being that solid kind of coloured background, it's got just a little bit of extra in the background now, just from using those stamps and the dies as a stencil. So I thought I'd show you that one as well. Oh, before I forget, I was going to show you the hexagon stamp, wasn't I? So let me do that before I forget. So we'll just take this one out. And the way to get it, it should stay, oh, it should stay straight actually. I was going to say the way to get it to stay straight, but they've left the photopolymer here, so it will actually stay straight, which is brilliant, because it means you don't have to fiddle with, you know, flipping it up the other way to try and get it to stay straight. But you can actually line it up on your block as well. Okay, there we go. And have I got a piece of card somewhere? Oh, I need these as well. Okay. Okay, so let's just use a pigment ink to stamp in, because it'll stamp really crisply. This is the first time I've used this stamp though, so if it doesn't stamp crisply, that'll be why. But let's just stamp that down. There we go. And then I can show you how you can also extend it. I'll just do a little bit because the card's not that long. And then you can just line this up and stamp the last bit on there, so you can extend the line as well. And then you can also stamp in between the ones that you've already got. I would usually put my head further over the top of this, so it might not be perfect. So you can do that and build it up like that, and you can even do another one. Oh, didn't ink that up properly. You could use your stamping platform for this as well, and if you get the perfect shifting amounts, you don't have to move the stamp each time. You can just shift the card and then you could get it to work. Okay, it's not quite perfect, it's too close here, but you see what I mean. You can actually build up an entire background then as well, and you'd actually have little channels running all the way through that you could colour a different colour, which is really nice. And then with this one, I'll just use an oxide that I've got here, so we can just ink that up. And you want to make sure it's two that are next to each other on the original stamp design, and not two that you've put next to each other by stamping them, otherwise it won't match. And then I'm probably going to have to put my head over this a bit more. Hopefully that matches. Or it might overlap actually. Oh no, that works. Okay, there we go. See? Really easy just to line that up and fill in the colours. So you could do a pattern of like one row is one colour, one row is another colour, and like build up the pattern like that. Or you can do the same colour across everything to make a whole solid background. That's actually really easy to line up. There we go. Perfect. So I thought I'd just show you that as well, just how easy it is to do that kind of a background on a card too. So I hope you enjoyed this up close video looking at the Tonic Stamp Club number 5, which is the background and borders. And I just think this is such a lovely stamp set and die set. A really nice starter set actually, especially if you were starting out with your art journaling. I think this kind of a set really gives you those kind of like basic designs that are perfect for the building blocks of any kind of journal page, because they're really versatile and can be turned into any kind of style of page, really. I mean, you could use them for something vintagey as well, actually. Or something more sci-fi, especially, I don't know why this is making me think of sci-fi stuff, but that could be really sci-fi. The chevron designs, these kind of ones, could be more like boho kind of designs and stuff as well. So I think they're really lovely stamps and dies. Oh, and also, all of the main products that I can find links for will be linked below the video and on my blog, and then there'll also be links for the Stamp Club as well, and I'll link you, if they're still available, to Stamp Club number 1 and 2 where I've used bits and pieces from, just in case you haven't seen them. And all of the links below the videos are actually affiliate links, so if you have ever used any of my links before, thank you so much. And if you want to support me, I do get a little commission off of every time you've placed an order through using one of my links. So I really do appreciate it if you do use them. Obviously you don't have to, but if you do use them, I really, really do appreciate it. So thank you so much to everybody who has, or everybody who's going to as well. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this up close video, and I will see you again in the next one. Thanks so much for watching. Bye!